Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 86 of the English with Kirsty podcast. And today we're going to talk about communication and specifically how bad communication when something hasn't gone right can actually make the situation worse. Because one thing that really drives me crazy both now and when I managed a team and when I was working in a bigger organization is when people don't take ownership of things when they don't go right. So maybe something wasn't your fault, but you still missed the deadline or were late or forgot to come to a meeting or whatever it was that somebody did. And, you know, sometimes it's just, you just have to apologize and move on with it. But this thing that I've been seeing recently and not so recently is when people just don't take ownership, like, oh, well, it wasn't my fault, so therefore it's not my problem. Or, yeah, it's not my responsibility. Yeah, you just have to deal with it. I messed up, but that's just the way it is. And that's not the way it is. When I managed a team, I had kind of a rule that, you know, if something went wrong, I wanted to know about it so we could put it right. I didn't want to wait till the last minute and it was too late to put it right, or I didn't want my team to lie to me or to try and blame each other. I wanted to know what had happened because I value the honesty. So sometimes that's all people want, just a bit of honesty. And yeah, sometimes it's dangerous if you take responsibility for something. Yeah, you could have problems. It could cause you problems in your career. But I'm not saying you should always say everything was your fault. But I'm just saying if something happened that you were responsible for, then you know you need to kind of take ownership and say, yeah, I realised that wasn't good. You know, this has been put in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. I remember a situation when I was at work and I'd made a mistake and I knew it, and I knew it would cause a problem for us as a team. And I realized this before the rest of the team, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have to do something about this, because if I go home, I'm just going to think about it all evening. And so I went in to the director's office and told her what had happened and my part in it, and apologized and explained what needed to be done. And I really thought she was going to be angry, but she wasn't. And I can only think that's because I didn't create some kind of story and try to blame other people or the technology, because people always blame technology. I mean, really, sometimes the technology does break, but I've seen so many cases where people, oh, the computer didn't save it. No, you didn't save it. And, you know, I think all I can think is that she just, in this particular situation, valued my honesty, even though it meant that because of the mistake I've made, we'd have to do some more work. But sometimes I think because I took ownership, yeah, it happened when I was looking after this thing, I forgot to do something and now we have a problem. Yeah, I think there's value in that. So because this annoys me, I thought I would share it with you and just think about some phrases in English, you know, how you can not do that and how you can actually make things better. Because, for example, if you're late for a meeting, there's nothing wrong with saying you're sorry you're late, because other people have had to wait for you, or if they started without you, other people will need to tell you what happened. So even if it was because of the traffic, or because you lost your keys, or because there was a problem on the way to work, you know, you can still be sorry you're late. And if you forget to attend a meeting, or if you, I don't know, can't meet a deadline, it may be completely not your fault that you can't meet the deadline, because maybe some information that you need hasn't been given to you, or you couldn't track down the information you needed or the person you needed to speak to. But if you've agreed to do something by a certain time, then yeah, of course, explain why. Because if you just say, oh, I haven't met your deadline, sorry, we need to extend it, that just looks a bit rubbish. You know, it doesn't put you in a good light. Sometimes you do need to give a bit of information about what happened, what went wrong. Not too much, because you could like completely bore people if you go into your whole life story of why something didn't work out. But, you know, sometimes people need a bit of information. I'm sorry this isn't ready at the time we agreed. I've had some problems with I haven't been able to find, I still need to speak to the person I needed to speak to hasn't been available. All of these things are valid reasons for not doing something on time, but ultimately you're sorry because you haven't fulfilled what you agreed to do, which is to get it done on time. So this is what I'm saying. You don't have to say everything's your fault if it isn't, but you still have to, don't give reasons for things, but don't say, well, yeah, that's just the way it is. I couldn't speak to who I needed to, so you're just going to have to wait, because that's not a very nice way to speak to people. And they will think more of you if you appreciate that you may have inconvenienced them, because if you didn't meet a deadline, maybe that means that the next person can't finish what they have to do, and then they won't meet a deadline. If you're working in a company, often the work we do is all connected. So yeah, if I don't get something for a meeting, then it means I can't send out the meeting papers, or your actions will impact other people. So just kind of be mindful of that too. And another thing which people don't like is blaming. So I remember once when I worked for a manager, not the nice manager I was just telling you about, the director, but someone else, and I had access to this person's emails because I was their assistant, and I managed some of the emails for her, but I saw this email, and it basically, she had blamed me for not doing something. It was my assistant, she didn't do it, and I knew nothing about this thing. I had no involvement in this thing at all, and I would never have known had I not seen the email. But I was thinking, that's outrageous. I'm being blamed for something I haven't even seen or been involved with, and that's not cool. That's not acceptable, and you shouldn't do that. Whether it is, even if it is someone else's fault, like, oh, my assistant forgot to do this, that's not a way to behave. You can say that there was a misunderstanding in the office, or there was a problem, but to point the blame unnecessarily just so you don't look so bad is not good. And especially if it's a lie, lying to get out of trouble is always it may not find you out immediately, but if you start lying to people, you have to remember all the lies that you've told, and sooner or later one of them will come to light. So it's really not worth doing it. And if people find out that you've lied, and as I found out that my manager lied about me, you lose all credibility. Then you think a lot less of that person, because you know that they're prepared to lie. And also, if they've done it once, well, then maybe they'll do it again. And so you lose all trust for that person. So yeah, if something goes wrong, don't just look for, who can we pin this on? Who can we blame? Obviously, if somebody did make a mistake, you need to talk to them and make sure it doesn't happen again. But your first response in an email to explain why something that hasn't happened doesn't have to be, it was my assistant, she did it wrong. That's not cool. So yeah, don't lie, don't look for people to blame. Yeah, it's okay to explain what happened if somebody wants to know, how did it happen that this went wrong. It's okay to explain, but just apologize, and also say what you're going to do to stop something going wrong again. So have measures been put in place? Have the processes been improved? Has communication been improved? Do you now have a shared diary so you can see where everyone is? Can you, is there a special procedure for dealing with a certain type of inquiry that's been implemented because of something went wrong? Or, there's lots of things you can do to say why something hopefully won't happen again, to try and make people feel better about the fact that there was a mistake or something was missed. Because at the end of the day, you have inconvenienced someone, so that's okay to apologize for. So remember to apologize if you need to. That doesn't mean you're saying it's your fault. You can be apologized because someone's been kept waiting or something like that. Give reasons, but don't just say, it's not my fault. Explain why something happened, but ultimately own that you're responsible for it. Don't blame someone else. Don't just demand an extension, like, I missed this deadline, so I need you to extend it. Maybe it's not possible, so find a nice way to ask it. Would it be possible to extend this deadline. Is it okay if I give you the information on Monday instead of Friday? There are nicer ways of saying it that don't sound so demanding. And finally, don't lie. So I hope that's helpful. Because if something bad has happened, you really don't want to make the situation worse by doing any of these above things, because that will probably just make the person even less likely to want to deal with you again. But you can rescue some situations by just being polite or honest, or trying to put them right. So, yeah, have a great week, everyone, and have fun learning English. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.